of the first mining companies to participate in our conference from abroad. Can you just explain a little more information about Hecla Mining Company and where you guys are situated, when you guys started?
Sure. Well, Hecla Mining Company is a 133-year-old company from Idaho in the United States, and we've been mining silver all that time.
Okay.
We are the largest producer of silver in the United States. We produce half of all the silver that is mined in the U.S., and we'll soon produce about 40% of all the silver mined in Canada. We're about the 11th largest silver company in the world. Producer of silver in the world. We're a primary producer. You have byproduct producers that are quite large, and we have the 11th largest silver mine in the world and the largest in the United States. We're also growing. About 5 years ago, we produced about 10 million ounces of silver. Last year we produced 14 million ounces. This year we should be almost 17 million ounces. And year after next we should be 20. So we will have doubled our production over the course of about 8 years. And we're going to continue to grow beyond that. We've got a number of projects throughout Canada and the US. And then we're also looking to acquire assets outside of the United States, primarily in Latin America.
So can you just tell me a little more about your mining operations and the productions and the production output of it?
Sure. So we have 3 silver mines in the United States and Canada, and we have 1 gold mine.
Okay.
The 3 silver mines are mines that have been in existence for some time. The mine we have in Idaho is a deep underground mine. In fact, it's the deepest mine in the United States. The bottom of the mine is 2 miles below the surface.
Okay.
Very, very hot.
Yeah.
Very, very seismically active. And as a result of that, we've had to develop new technologies to allow us to mine this mine. So we developed a mining method that has now been patented, and it's called the underhand closed bench. And we're constantly trying to figure out how to innovate our mines. Our biggest mine is in Alaska called Greens Creek. It's been in existence for 35 years. It is it's probably the highest grade silver mine in the world over the course of that time. It's generated billions of dollars of free cash flow. It really has been the foundational asset. And the most recent mine that we have is in the Yukon. Okay. You know, the famous Yukon in Canada. It is the largest mine in Canada, or soon will be when we get to full production. And it's a historic mining district. It's the 2nd largest silver mining district in Canada. So those are our 3 silver assets. And then the gold asset we have is in Quebec.
So sir, are the lifespans of a gold mine and a silver mine pretty much the similar, or do they differ?
It depends on the deposit. Okay. You know, our gold mine actually has been around for about 35 years as well. Okay. And all of these mines have future lives that will at least be, I would say, at least 20 years, and they'll probably be longer.
So sir, as silver is being used in the industrial application side, in the solar PV, so what do you think about the supply demand aspects with related to silver in these industries?
Let me talk about the supply first. The thing that's pretty remarkable about supply is it has been completely flat over the last decade. Okay. The mines produce roughly 850 million ounces, plus or minus. And the outlook for that is not to see it increase by very much. And it's quite spread over a large number of mines. The 2nd largest silver mine in the world is here in India, Hindustan Zinc. It produces about 18 million ounces. The largest mine is a Polish copper mine that produces 40 million ounces. Okay. And then when you look at the mines, our mine that's the 11th largest is only 10 million ounces. Yes. Point is, there are no really big silver mines. Yep. And so there is an inability of the mines to meet the growing demand. Yep. Recycling is another source of supply for silver, and that has grown over the last decade. but the growth has been about 20% more now than it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And recycling is driven by the price of gold, not by the price of silver. People don't do this e-waste recycling for silver; they do it for gold. So the ability of the recycling to grow dramatically is pretty limited. So that's the supply side. You got a very stagnant growth profile for the supply. On the demand side, it's growing quite rapidly, and it's growing across a number of areas. But it's really two that drive it. One being electrical, which would include photovoltaics. The other being investment demand. There's a realization that wasn't true when I first started working for Hecla 20 years ago. There's a realization of the value of holding silver, whether it's in the form of coins and bars or in the form of adornment that has value, and that continues to grow. So you now have a big supply-demand imbalance. And that imbalance has resulted in a deficit that is over the last 3 years is 500 million ounces. This year, it will probably take it up to 750 million ounces, and that will continue certainly for the rest of the decade.
Yeah. So where does silver play a part in these energy transitions?
Silver is fundamental in the energy transition because photovoltaics are the transition energy source of choice. Okay. It's the cleanest, it has the fewest maintenance issues. The wind, for example, has a lot of maintenance. There's a lot of issues people have with hydro. People have issues with nuclear. So when you look at where policy is trying to take the energy transition, it's to solar, it's to the photovoltaics. So you're going to continue to see that grow. If you go back 10 years ago, it was about 40 million ounces of silver for photovoltaics. Today, it's over 200 million ounces. Oh. And last year to this year, the growth was, I think, somewhere around 60%. And photovoltaics, it takes about not quite 500,000 ounces to generate 1 gigawatt of photovoltaic energy. And in the world last year, there was 444 gigawatts. So 200 million ounces.
And 404 gigawatts.
And that is growing. And if you look at where policymakers want to take it, it's going to get to millions of gigawatts. Or not millions, tens of thousands of gigawatts is where they're trying to get to.
So can you just tell me a little comparison about the socio-political stability in the US when it is compared to regions like Mexico, Peru, and China?
Sure. Well, let me start with the disadvantage the U.S. has, and that's with the permitting policies in the U.S. It takes a long time to get projects permitted and get them into production. And it's just a process that includes a lot of litigation. The U.S. is known for litigation. And we certainly have it in the permitting process. But the big advantage of the U.S. is once you get permitted, you have security of title, you have a regulatory regime that is predictable, you have a tax policy that is predictable. And so as a result, you can be confident to make the investments that you need to make over the long term. You go to these Latin American countries and you don't have those things. Plus, you have security issues in those countries. So I look at the United States and recognize that the permitting policies are improving, and I think they're going to improve dramatically over the course of the next few years. But having said that, it does not really change the supply-demand fundamentals. It takes roughly 20 years from the time you make a discovery of a ore body to the time you get it into production. Around the world. And so, we are not going to be able to have mine supply fill that gap, that deficit that we have between supply and demand.
So recycling can be an important part.
It's so small.
Small.
Yeah, it's not more than 200 million-ish today in a 1.2 billion ounce market. So it doesn't move the needle, no matter how fast that could grow.
So, sir, with this being in perspective, can you just tell me, as a mining company, what are you doing to increase your production and meet the future demand, which, as you told, is keeping on increasing?
You know, the first thing is we're innovating the mines that we have.
Okay.
So I mentioned about the Lucky Friday, but all of our mines, we are implementing new technologies. You look at the drilling technology, it is automated, and we improve we break less material, and we break the material that we want to break, and then aren't moving material that's worthless.
Okay.
So we're doing lots of things to innovate these mines, and then we're developing new mines. The mine we have in the Yukon is new, and we have roughly 16 projects in the U.S. and Canada that we're exploring on that will have the opportunity to provide us growth in the future. And then we're acquiring assets.
So as you told, in the drilling thing, you look at certain proportions and certain parts of the mine, and you try to drill those parts. So how do you recognize that that is the part you want to drill?
Well, you're exploring, and you're actually doing lots of science to determine where is the most likely place to find the mineralization. And then once you've determined that, then you will follow up with a whole series of additional drilling, and then finally you'll go in and mine it. It's a fascinating industry. It's one that uses skills that are across the gamut of skills. You've got engineers, you've got geologists, you have accountants, you have operating people, mechanics, you have, you need all
so
of
a lot
these
of research
skills.
is done before where to drill, how to drill.
Absolutely.
So sir, just one last question. What do you think are the future prospects in India, and what do you think about the Indian market as a whole?
Well, this is my second trip to India, and I'm struck the changes in the last, it's been about 7 years that I'm seeing in India. And certainly you guys are on a profile. You currently, about 15, almost 20% of all the demand for silver comes from India. So you're already a major place where it gets consumed. And my impression is, with all of the construction that's happening, all the developments that's happening, that the standard of living being raised in India, that you're going to need even more silver, because realize silver is in every electric switch. That camera has a little bit of silver in it. And as people's standard of living rises, they consume more silver.
Yes. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
You're welcome.
Yes.